My brother once said to me that the more you travel, the less you take with you. You'll learn, he said, to leave unnecessary baggage behind. I mentioned this to a friend of mine who completely disagreed. She said at the time, "I completely disagree." I explained what my brother meant. He was saying that when we travel, when we move somewhere new, we leave the historical definitions of ourselves behind. We are able to cut away at the false bits of identity that stick to us like spitballs shot at us by our loving friends and our enemies. Traveling for the first time, we might tend to bring those sticky ideas with us in the same way we might bring an electric razor to Spain only to discover that you can't plug it into the crazy slant-holed outlet there. We bring our jobs with us like that razor, and our modes of identification. We're not talking about a passport here. We're talking about the language, the ideas, the images we use to define the person inside our skin. We bring these with us though we don't need them. At least, we don't need all of them. The more you move around and travel, the better you understand what is optional. You'll learn to leave those optional pieces behind. You'll learn to shave with lathered soap and a straight razor. I understand that, my friend said. I do. But I still don't think that's how it is. My friend held to the view that when you move to a new place you grow. There is no cutting away the inessential you. It's all essential and it will get bigger, not smaller, the more you see of the world. Your experiences will naturally expand the view you hold of yourself. More than that, your experiences will expand the very self-thing you are viewing. Traveling changes you all right, but it doesn't liberate you from the past. Both my brother and my friend are, of course, wrong. You can guess a little of what drives both of these people, each of whom have traveled widely and who have lived thousands of miles from their original homes. You can guess what kind of people they are based on their travel theories. What they say is true for them because it is what they want to be true. Beneath ideas of encountering new places and people, experiencing new contexts, moving, traveling, the nature of change, beneath all this is an idea of the self. I'm not going to get into the metaphysics of identity and consciousness and the philosophy of self. Walking right around that dark forest, I am going to give you another metaphor instead, one that speaks to my brother's idea of cutting away at stale definitions and to my friend's idea of constant growth and increasing complexity. The metaphor, the self, is a piece of art open to interpretation. What does this metaphor have to do with traveling and moving and encountering new ideas? Depending on the individual, this metaphor can have everything to do with moving. Context and critical frameworks are essential to any artistic interpretation. This is true no matter how much specific training a person has had, whether studying for a PhD in art history or setting the Smurfs as your artistic standard for high art. There is a culture in the mind. Regarding the piece of work that is the self, this culture is sometimes very specific. The most local cultures, our families, are often where our most rigorous definitions come from: older sister, little brother, only child, good kid, bad kid, etc. This is where my brother is right. At some point in our lives, we have to cut away at these stodgy definitions. We are more than a branch on the family tree. Leaving home isn't the only way to get past the little brother title, but it's a good way. My brother's theory depends on the idea that by stripping away these categorical and historical definitions, we can come to see ourselves in their raw, pure truth. We can step out of the shadows, to put it dramatically, and see what we look like in the light. I have to agree with my friend when she says that this just isn't how the self works. This isn't how life works. There's no essential self, not one that can be revealed by leaving home, moving to a new city, or traveling to China. No, there is one globular body of notions, experiences and sensibilities that stands on the easel of the world. We call it the self. At least in this metaphor we do. And when we leave home we find new ways to interpret the work on the easel. We get new words to describe it, and that's how we get beyond being the only child. It's the language and the ideas we encounter that allow us to see ourselves in new ways. The work on the easel doesn't change, essentially, and does not become more essential either. We just find new ways of interpreting what was already there. This is where my friend was correct. We do grow through traveling and moving. But it's not the self that grows. It is our vocabulary regarding self that grows. In another country we are the visitor. When we get back home from Europe or Africa, we are the traveler. The sophisticate, in the eyes of our community. Suddenly new phrases describe the thing inside our skin. Now we are the older sister and the woman who dated a Frenchman for a summer in England. Existentially, we have not changed. The self up on the easel is fundamentally unchanged. Putting things in this way also doesn't change anything. This is all mere description for a debatable and difficult entity, description of an abstraction we call the self. Yet, the fact that this thing is so abstract doesn't keep us from believing in it. In fact, our ideas about this abstract piece of work that I have set upon an easel can drive us to distraction, can inspire and dishearten us, and can take center stage in many of our thoughts. Our sense of what the self is can lead us to travel and to move across the country. And we can expect big things to happen to that self when we do. This is why I think it can be important to set the self up on the easel, to see it as a subject for interpretation but not for change. I am one person among many thousands who has moved area codes, relocated to new time zones, and traveled abroad hoping for a big change only to find that in a new house I've got the same old problems. Moving won't change the colors on the canvas. Traveling won't alter the composition of the piece. Moving, like reading a great novel, will give you a new set of phrases to describe what has always been there. Traveling is like taking an art history course. I don't think it's true that the more you travel, the less you take with you. And I don't think it's true that the more places you go, the more you grow. Because we don't go anywhere in the metaphysical sense and we don't change or grow in the existential sense. We travel through a world of ideas and move in a world of phrases, where words are our houses, images are our patios, and the self sits up on a nice little easel where we can always see.